Welcome to another episode of This Works For Us podcast. And I want to get your names right. I heard it earlier. Was it Semise? Semise. I knew I heard it right. I didn't want to mess it up. Semise and Sherman Daley. Welcome to the show, guys. Glad to have you on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And you guys are joining us from the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're in San Diego, sunny San Diego.
Sunny San Diego.
You know, I've never been.
Sunny, wet San Diego the last
Now.
few days.
Well, it's wet there, and we had the what was it? Oh, the eclipse today.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
That was fun. That was I would say it's fun to a certain degree because it was so much cloud coverage that
Oh,
you really couldn't
Oh.
see it or enjoy it. But it definitely got dark. Street lights came on. I'm like, all right, this is
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah.
ready to go? Ready to go?
I was like, hey, let's
Right.
like rapture us, get us out of here. Yes, Lord, let's go. But before we
And when
get
it's over, you're like, oh man, it's still
Yeah,
here.
That was it. That was it.
it was literally like eating juicy fruit gum. You know, the flavor don't last that long in there. So as soon as you get a couple chews in it, it's already gone. So that's how the eclipse was that day. But before we get too far along in it, I have a icebreaker question. And that question is, oh, wait a minute, just lost it. There it is. What's a memorable moment from your early days of dating that still makes you smile?
Mhm.
You can go first. Probably know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, early moment that makes me smile. There's several.
Yeah.
Probably okay, so she was in Indiana. I was here in San Diego. You know the time difference, about what, 2 or 3 hours.
So
separate.
2 hours.
2 hours separate. And I would work late, and
I knew
obviously
you were gonna say it.
she was much later, but we'd be on Skype.
It was Skype at that time.
Zoom was
Oh, we
not
had
big back then.
Zoom was
Skype was
this,
the thing.
yeah, this was in 2011.
So we'd be on Skype, and we'd talk, and she'd fall asleep. We'd be sleeping, and I'm working away on my computer. So it's like company, right? Even though she wasn't saying anything. So that picture still makes me smile when I remember that time. Because it was almost like every night we talk and she'd fall asleep and I keep working until she wakes up and says good night.
Yeah, so we did that for several months until I moved to Indiana. I'm sorry, until I moved from Indiana to San Diego. We got married in Indiana, and then I moved myself and my son. And one of my most memorable, funniest moments, and it kind of ties into what he said, was when I was finally here.
Mhm.
And I was finally Mrs. Daley, and I was finally in the same bed, falling asleep. One night, think like wee hours of the night, I'm sleeping and I open my eyes and he's standing there looking at me. And I wake up, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm watching you sleep. I watched you sleep for months. I'm like, dude, that's creepy. So that's one of
Was
our
it,
funny.
I was gonna say, was it one of those things where, you know, like you said, you was asleep, and then next thing you know, you kind of
Exactly. Exactly. And he's standing there looking at me, sleeping.
he was like on the movie Life, with Eddie Murphy was looking at Martin Lawrence laying in bed, like, And I know you plotting something. You got something up your sleeve. Watch it, watch it. So what you guys obviously shared answered a few questions that we had in there, and it said you guys were married 12 years now, right? And there's a story in
that, yes.
the 12 years. And before we get to that story, how exactly did you guys meet?
Well, we met on Christian Mingle.
Christian Mingle, okay.
Awesome.
So I'm out here in California. She's in Indiana, like I mentioned, right? And I was on the hunt, sending out hellos, invites, or whatever. And this night I must have done about 50. And then I went off to sleep or whatever. Well, typically my background is IT. I'm a software engineer, manager, and all that. So I usually work and stay. I work from home, so I work late, right? So I'd work really late. So I do something and I go off and work on my project or whatever. So out of all those people, only one person responded that night.
All it takes is one. All it takes is one. That's it.
All it took was one.
And how did you, Semise, how did you reach out? What was said? And it was like, hey, brother, I see
piqued your interest.
You know, what brought you in? What was the bait that was out there that he had? You're like, I'll bite.
Well,
And she didn't want to date out of state. So
yeah. So, just a little background to that. I have been divorced for at least 10 years and had dated locally a little bit. But then, I started thinking, maybe I need to think about this online dating. But it's still kind of sketchy, a little scary. So I remember talking to one of my best friends, and I told her I was thinking about online dating, but it's like there's all kind of people out there. And she said, well, somebody meet people like you. Like, okay, all right, I'll be willing to try it. So there was a couple of things that I did set up, safety precautions, and I always tell my single sisters this. Whenever I started engaging with someone online, really early, I'd have at least 4 of my confidants evaluate that conversation from the get-go. And if they saw anything, any red flags, they knew me well enough, and I trusted them well enough, and they were like, no, cut that one. I did. So I was very cautious. And so this particular time, and I had a distance limitation. I didn't want to do any long distance dating at all. It was bad enough I'm online. I was like, so I had a parameter that I had set into the system. Somehow it still came through. When I read his profile, the thing that stood out the most was that he said, he introduced himself, and he wrote that he likes making friends, and from the get-go, and he does it that way because then if things don't work out, if it's if there's no spark, you still have a friend. And so I was used to, in that time, having friends that were males that I like, I can add him to my repertoire of my friends. Because distance, there's nothing happening here, right? And so that's what prompted me to respond to his profile.
Yeah, I said I build friendships, and we'll see where it goes from the Lord. If it turns into blessing, and great. Otherwise, we're still great friends.
Yeah, And so we started conversating back and forth. And one thing that I really appreciated and liked about Sherman's interactions and communications on Christian Mingle, he was fine staying within the parameters of Christian Mingle as long as I was comfortable. You know, I hadn't been on online dating too long, but long enough to see that there was a trend. Some guys would be like, okay, just send me your phone number.
Yeah.
You know, just send me your email. And I'm like, nope, slow your roll, slow
Yeah.
slow down. So we actually took advantage and leveraged a lot of the tools, the matchmaking and the getting to know you type tools that was integrated into Christian Mingle. And I like that about him. There's a lot of questions, questionnaires, and he was willing to, you know, go through that with me until I was comfortable with disclosing, you know, my personal contact information.
So I got that from actually I went to eHarmony. eHarmony was the first one I went to online when I decided to try.
I had done eHarmony as well, and
And
they're very, very excellent site.
yeah, I loved what they did because when I went on, they start asking you all these questions, right? They don't just let you.
Before you even are matched, before you even consider to match with someone.
No, we don't know if they still do that, but back in the day, that's what they did. So they give you these parameters like, 10 things you can't do without, or things you
Out of the 100
you absolutely will not take.
tolerate.
And that was really good because it started to make me realize, wait a minute, there's things that's totally off limits.
Like non-negotiables.
Yeah, and most people, you don't, we have these non-negotiables, but we never talk about it.
Right. But we
Just
let
hit
him,
it.
you know,
Oh, he's kind of cute, so or she's kind of cute, so I'll let that slide.
well, they got a potty mouth, but but they're still cute. And so
And you can't deal with it. So.
and after a while, those non-negotiables, if you've let them slide, cute anymore.
Right, right.
That's what we call those red flags.
Yeah.
Thanks. Absolutely. So that was one exercise on eHarmony that he had gone through like way before. He had been on online dating for longer than I had. But I had gone through eHarmony before I went to Christian Mingle, so I had that background. The other exercise that they have is very similar, is what are the top 10 things that you it's two phases to it, that you can't do without and that you will not tolerate out of a list of 100.
Yeah.
And so you really have to be, it makes you think intentionally, what don't I want? So and what do I want?
Right.
Do I want in a mate? And so, having that background was really, I think, very beneficial for me. And I thank the Lord for prepping me that way, to be able to. And then, like I said, I have my circle of confidants, and I remember one of my friends, I thought this guy was pretty neat, and she read it, and there was some things that I was kind of noticing, but I'm like, yeah, but nobody's perfect. And she was like, no, that sounds like a problem. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. Click.
So
And so
does the other
Sherman,
person see your answers?
when you allow the engagement, like after Sherman and I had connected, and there was no one that I had connected with as much as him. There were some guys that made it like maybe the level 1, but then they kind of phased out for some reason. But once you get to a certain level, yes, there are, I can't remember exactly how Christian Mingle did it, but there's questions that you both answer and then they evaluate, and then you look
Share
at
with each
you
other.
share with each other your responses, you talk about it. So yeah, at that point you do see each other's responses. Yeah.
You know, that's interesting that you said about the distance, you know, like what you wanted. You said, I don't really want this. And I feel like every time we kind of interview a couple, someone always says like what I what I had planned, right? And I just love that about God. It's like, okay, that's good for you, but this is my plan and this is what I have for you. I love that.
Exactly.
So tell them what you want, right? Have a good
Yep.
life.
Yep. 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 Don't tell them what you're not gonna do.
Right.
Because I knew the first week she was the one.
That's beautiful.
First week I knew hands down. I didn't tell her that, but
Well,
I knew.
I kind of knew because after I think like 3 months in,
Good.
well, no, listen to what I'm saying.
Okay.
So he visited where I was, Indiana first. And then, after meeting him in person and making sure he was who he said he was, and we had been talking every day and every night up until that time. And then when I met him face to face, I'm like, okay, yeah, he is a real person. And so then I was comfortable enough to visit him here in San Diego. And oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? So oh my gosh, it just
You
went
were
me where I
talking
was
about
going.
when you knew.
Yeah, and plus he apparently
Yes,
had that effect
yes.
on you.
So it was, I think it was that, no, it was, okay, it wasn't that visit. It was the next visit. The next visit, it was time for me to come back here, I think. And I had enough frequent flyer miles. I was able to just, comp my plane. And it was around Valentine's Day. And I was here and I told him, because I knew, I could tell. And I told him, I was like, don't ask me to marry you.
I already had the ring.
He already had the ring. I didn't know that. But I just, so you asked, how did I know or do we know? He knew right away. And I was like, okay, pumping the brakes, slow down.
Did you listen or did you propose?
No, he listened.
He listened.
Yeah. Men are really smart. He didn't want to get rejected. So he was like, okay. I mean, but I think he knew the relationship and the chemistry was there. It was just at that time, I mean, we had just been conversating for 3 months. I'm like, don't ask me to marry you.
Put his head down at that point. Man, I just bought this ring.
Okay.
Wait
Yeah.
now.
He's like, just put the ring in the drawer, in the back of the drawer for a little while.
Was it 3? It's less than 3 though, but that's all right. So yeah, that's kind of how we met. And I don't know if you want. I'll let you ask the questions of where you want to lead, or
Well, you
did
said
you
you
want us
have
just to go?
how many kids was it that you guys have?
Combined 5. Yeah. So I bought 3 birth children and a godson. And he has a son. Yeah. And so out of those 5, we just had our 8th grandchild.
That's awesome.
And
Congratulations.
They do. We have 2 grand dogs. So it's a big happy family.
So lots of fun.
Yeah.
Lots of fun when we're together. Yeah, the all kids are grown. Only our daughter, which is our only daughter, my birth child, lives here close to us. So all the sons are scattered across the country. Yeah.
It's always one. It's always gonna be the one that's gonna stick around close.
Yes, and thank God it's my daughter. Thank God I have one daughter, and we're really thankful that she's the one that's closest with us. We love all of them,
Right.
but yeah, it's good to have her close.
Let's dive deep into this 12 years of
let's get there.
marriage.
So
Okay, so you kind of want to know what happens in the next 12 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So at 8 months, we got married. And
Yeah,
it
we
was
were on the
awesome.
fast track.
Yeah.
We felt like, can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
We felt like we were we knew that we were each other, that's
Checked
the
all the
one.
boxes.
Yeah, checked all the boxes. Both of us had lists and checked all the boxes. He was Boaz, the Lord had provided everything that I asked for. Granted, both of us come from previous marriages to other people, and long-term marriages. Mine almost hitting 20 years.
Mine was 19.
His was 19 married. Mine was about 16 married and about 4 or 5 living together. Both Christian marriages, and not just Christian marriages, but serving in the church, ministers and elders in the church, serving in marriage ministry, both of them, but still found ourselves divorced from those people. So this time around, he had been divorced about 7 years, and I had been divorced about 10. And so when we met each other, we felt, okay, been there, done that. We know what to do now. My thing was always, preparing myself for whatever God had for me. One of my favorite authors is Michelle McKinney Hammond. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she is, to me, a guru of single Christian women. And so one of her first books that I read was Single, Sassy, and Satisfied. So in that 10 years, I had become that. God had provided. God was my husband. I didn't want or need for anything. People were surprised that I was a single woman, because I was a kept woman. God kept me. And so anyway, so we met each other. Like I said, we were on the fast track, got married.
Yeah, moved to San Diego.
Mhm.
And move across country back to
Yeah.
country.
How did you decide which location?
Well, that's a good question.
It's cold in
So,
there too. I feel you,
It's
brother.
nice and hot out here.
when I moved to Indiana, it was because of Hurricane Katrina. I was living in my hometown of New Orleans, Louisiana, when Hurricane Katrina hit. The Lord transplanted me in Indiana for 8 years before I met Sherman. And honestly, I want to say the first week, it was really early when I was in Indiana. The Lord had given me a sign that it was a crossroads. So it was kind of already in my heart that, this isn't going to be my forever here on earth home.
Yeah.
But I wasn't looking for where I'm going to go. I'm just, and I was there for 8 years and just really was like a garden, just surrounded me with community, awesome people. And so when I met Sherman, I had visited San Diego before at a conference. And so I can remember, it's like, okay, been there, check that off my list of places to go. Wasn't that impressed. But then when we started dating and I would come visit, oh my gosh, it was like 7 days. It was so funny because my dad teased me because I remember talking to him on the phone and I was like, Daddy, release just growing everywhere, just wild and bird of paradise, just growing. He's like, girl, you're just in love. So when it came to time to try to figure out where we were going to live, it wasn't, you didn't have to twist my arm. Sherman was like, oh, I love it. You know? And I'm like, okay. The thing that we had to consider is I had a son that was just going to be entering another grade level in high school. And so that was also a really huge thing for me in considering being a single mom, second year in high school, and he like he was staying on the right track too well. So that was also an influence to bring him here, which was really a blessing because we were able to provide a really just really godly education for him that I feel like was I know was a huge influence and has been an influence on his life. He's 25 now. But yeah, so that was a, so as a single mom, I think if I hadn't had my son, I probably would have resisted a little bit longer, but just considering all that, the advantages that it would be for him and the opportunities for him, that helped. So you guys, your parents, you kind of you think of your kids, what's gonna be, even though you have to make decisions, you weigh what's gonna be the best decision for the whole family as a whole.
Right,
so that was a big influence in us moving here with him. My daughter, on the other hand, she was 18. She was in college, and her thought was, and her word verbatim, my mom getting married wasn't in my plans.
Her plan.
Her plans, yes. So as heart-wrenching as that was, I had to leave her behind because she's 18, she's of age, she's in college, she had her own life to set out, and I had to honor that. My dad was like, you should make her come with you. I'm like, Eddie, I mean, right now I can't make her come. Now the youngest, he has no choice.
Right.
But and her, and so and that's another reason, I had to leave her behind. And she stayed apart from us, gosh, almost 7 years, something like that.
About 5 years.
About 5 years. And so now with her coming and living here now, it's my heart's back in my chest.
We didn't come until we were still.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what we're gonna do. We get married. We're checking all the boxes, right? This is the one. I am the one. 3 years later, after conflict, filed for divorce, irreconcilable differences. And that was the hardest thing, with all of that, all the certainty that we had to have to go through divorce, and stayed divorced for 3 years. Stayed divorced. We separated.
Separated for a year.
Separated for a year, divorced for 3. So lived apart for 4 years. And in that time, just still praying. I never stopped praying for him, but and I'll let him tell his
So
side of the
on my
story.
side of it, after the separation, like, okay, Lord, what I do? I mean, geez, everything I asked for and more. I mean, what do you do now? You don't go back and ask God, well, I need another one.
Refund.
It doesn't work. So I asked him, what should I do? He says, you need to learn to understand your wife. You need to understand what makes her tick. You need to understand why she's the way she is. She's hurt. And so I started learning. And part of that learning is why we're doing some of what we're doing today, because I haven't really stopped learning in that area. And because I began to learn about relationships, how you talk to each other, how you communicate, the needs, understand. And a few years later, it was on my heart. It's like, you need to do. I still try to reach out to her, but she was still hurt, and she'd lash out and be angry at me.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. So that was one of the big things because I had to learn not to get crushed when she said hurt things to me.
Yeah.
And that was really hard. That was very hard because, I care. But then that's where the Lord showed me, she's like a wounded animal right now. You try to help a wounded animal, they're wounded. They're not thinking of your motive. They're thinking, hey, I'm hurting. I need, to take care of my wounds. So, I mean, I had to learn to not take the comments personally, to understand those statements made out of hurt.
Yeah.
So that took a bit of growing for me. That was rough. Eventually we started talking and we started developing our friendship and intimacy. So we decided to go at it again, and we got a coach, a counselor. He was he was a psychologist because he has a PhD and everything. But he was a Christian counselor, and he'd been at it maybe 30 years or more, so he had a lot of experience, which was some of the things that we wanted. So we agreed to go and see him. And I know you're itching to talk about this, Pat.
Yeah, so it wasn't, even though we were what, 7 years in now, right? Between getting married, getting divorced. It was early on, I knew we needed help because communication wasn't there. But we hung on for those 3 years and then got the divorce. And so my what do I want to say? My requirement for getting back together is we're getting counseled. We need to get counseled. And I have been saying that for a long time. We tried getting counseling in other places, but they were not effective at all. In fact, they were worse. They made things worse. So it wasn't until and Sherman was always resistant. He was like, I am not going to a counselor for you just to point out what's wrong with me. And it's my fault. And no matter how much I would try to nope, that's not why you go to counseling. You go to counseling for a mediator, someone, because both parties have issues. Well, it wasn't until he really heard me saying, I need help. I need help with this. I love you. I need help.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until he heard that. And I always tell ladies, it's true. Your husbands, our men want to be our hero. So when he heard that I needed help, that's when he consented finally to getting counseling. And then the counseling was like he said, it had to be high standard, professional, experienced, not just Uncle blah blah or whatever, it had to be somebody with some experience. And God provided that, and Christian, by the way. God provided that for us in Dr. Hiddle. And this was during COVID. And this was after we decided, okay, well, let's try to give this a try. It was kind of like my last ditch effort because, at that point I was done being hurt. I was done not being heard, not being valued. And so we met with Dr. Hiddle. This was right when COVID hit. So in the midst of COVID, so it was virtual, it was Zoom. The first meeting we had with him, he listened to our story, and then he said, well, I'm going to tell you that most couples that have been divorced and separated as long as you have a 1%, about a 1% chance of reconciling.
Mm.
One, not 40,
Yeah.
not 20, not 10, 1%.
Wow.
And so, you know, I was polite and I listened to the rest of the reading, and then when we clicked off that Zoom, I looked at Sherman and I'm like, Kim, 1%? Did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
You know, I was crushed. I mean, that was like so pessimistic and just so disappointing to me. You know, I was already hurting, and we were coming to you for help, and you're telling us 1%. And
Was that like
anybody
a
that knows,
challenge? Was that like you heard the 1%, you was like, okay, we'll show you. Did that kind of kick that
no,
off?
not for me. And usually that is how I am. You know, if you tell me not to do something, I'm gonna say, watch me. But in this case, I didn't have that. No, I was crushed. And so I told Sherman that, and if anybody knows Sherman, Sherman's I guess a little, he ponders a little bit longer, a little more calculated than I am. Sometimes I react right away. But he's like, well, Semise, I think what I heard him saying is that if we're gonna make it, it's gonna be work.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be work on our part, not his. You know, so it was almost like his disclaimer. It was like,
Yeah.
look, if y'all don't make it, it's y'all fault.
Yeah.
It's not on me, it's on y'all. And so, you know, I thought about that. I was like, okay, yeah. And our friends laugh at that story. They were like, Sherman was like, we got a chance.
1%, but
Hey,
we have a
That means
we
there's
have-
a chance.
Yeah.
There's one chance in there.
Just like it only took for your one yes for y'all to be together.
That's
It's
it.
that 1% to
Yes.
bring that back in.
All you need is a little bit of this much hope.
Just
Yeah.
that much faith, right?
Right.
That mustard seed.
Just
That
a
mustard
little
seed.
bit of faith, right? And so that started us on the journey. We kept Dr. Hiddle as our coach for over a year, even after we got married. A few months after we started meeting with him, we could see the progress. And so we decided to remarry in the midst of COVID in December. And just told him, like, look, yeah, I know we're married now, but you're not going anywhere. You still, we're still holding on to you. We held on to him for about another year or so. And then, gosh, we have 3 other types of coaches. We have a professional relationship coach that helps us not only as a couple, but has been gracious to share with us a lot of what he's learned about relationships, and that's what we use when we coach. We have a coach that is a business coach, Christian business coach. And then we have a couple from our church. Whenever we need to call them, we touch bases with them ever so often. So the Lord has provided us a community of support. And we found that that's what we need when we coach. That's what we try to build with the couples that we coach. And a lot of the techniques along the way we've learned was effective for us. And that's when it became like, okay, other people need to hear these things, we're not taught how to be in relationship. Where do you, and it's, if you're not fortunate enough to grow up in a perfect family,
Right.
which there are none,
Right.
so where do we get educated and mentored on how to be a Christian marriage or a marriage? And I always say, what profession, what role, what athletic skill do you embark on without first being or having some type of training,
Yeah.
some type of orientation, some type of expectations laid out before you and shown to you, right? And then, we fall in love, we have the chemicals going and all the chemistry. And then, you know, months later, years later, we find ourselves just stranded because we don't know what to do. How do you do this?
Right.
So we've had to how to be married and how to allow God to use us to be a couple that he wants us to. We hear the scriptures, we know scriptures, right? How do you live that? How do you live those scriptures, and apply them?
And that's the problem in the church today, because we all have the answers. It's right there in the Bible.
Yep.
But yet, the divorce rate for Christians is almost as bad
As
as
non-Christians.
Christians.
Yeah.
And the reality, you know why? It's because we're following the same strategy there. We're going to follow God for us. I mean, God laid it all out. It's everything is in the Bible. The answers is all there. But our dysfunctions, our past, our history, our habits, all this was sabotaging us. And we aren't trained or taught how do you deal with them? You know, how do you love your wife when you're pissed off? What do you do? When you're angry, what do you do? Well, I can tell you what most people do. They go to their vices, and their vices cause the relationship to get even worse. So instead of, because we don't know how to handle tension, we don't know how to handle conflicts, and guess what? It's what happens in marriages. It's more with conflict. Why? Because you're two different people trying to be one. So you got two different ideas, two different ways of doing things, and two is divided. One is not. And the challenge is learning how do you become one? And you'll work at this the rest of your life as a couple because you're not the person you are and the person next to you is not the same. And you'll never be the same, but you can coexist.
Yeah.
And the secret's in Genesis. When God created man, he created Eve to meet a need that Adam had. And that need, okay, was transferred to her because he took her out of Adam, right? So they both had the same need. So she knew what he needed, and he knew what she needed because they both had the same need. They were both naked and unashamed. That's what God said. Okay. There was no shame, there's no dysfunction until sin came in. And all but when sin entered in, selfishness was born. And that is the problem we're still fighting today. I mean, you get into a relationship, it will fall apart because you become selfish.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about your other spouse, you start thinking about each other, that's when the relationship flourishes. And, I've been in church, taught, preached, learned a lot of stuff, but there isn't a lot of, we have all, I guess there's, at least for me, I don't know, there's probably some places around here that's different, but
Oh yeah.
there's not a lot of exposition that I got that was teaching how to love your spouse, how to live it out. Not just talk about it. Love is patient, love is kind, but do we do it? No. Love never seeks its home. So love is not selfish. But what are we? We're all selfish. We have that nature. And you can't do this without God,
Yeah.
you know? And he's the X factor that allows you to be selfless for your spouse. And most people don't get that.
Yeah.
No,
But
they
what we find is it's not the knowledge, it's the skills.
Yeah. And what we've learned along the way, from, the psychiatrist and from the professional relationship coach and our own quests, there's a lot of research now that proves certain things work. Gottman Institute is a huge one. We use a lot of their research and backing. They can predict, gosh, with over 90% accuracy just by watching couples interactions, who's going to end up in divorce within a year.
Wow.
Yes. And so even though that's research and it's not biblical based in its research in and of itself, but guess what, we notice when they start talking about what it was that these couples did, it was based in biblical principles.
They're all good.
Yep.
So God created
God
it.
told us
We work.
right. God tells us to be quick to listen,
Slow to speak.
and slow to anger.
Yeah.
Guess what? Most of those couples that are masters, that they call, Gottman's Institute calls their couples either masters or disasters. The masters have been able to, listen to one another, engage with one another, consider one another, things like that. Guess what? That's right in that scripture right there.
Yep.
Yep.
That's right there, right? And so, but how do we do that? How do you slow it down when you're so frustrated, you're so angry? And so that's the skills that we've learned to get underneath what's going on
It's that
and help couples.
the things that, okay, so I like the research stuff because when I started learning all this stuff, I'm like, I can't believe this, guys. Like, answers all here.
Yeah.
See, the Bible's got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you may not be able to get it right away. The application may take some dynamics that you need to work out.
It starts with a changing of our mind, right?
Yes, yeah. But the thing, what I was to say is, the excuses are gone.
Yeah.
Well, now we got scientific proof that if you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it works. He's got a book, 7 Ways to Make Your Marriage Work. And the principles are all in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the basic, but when I look at all the things that's there, they're all stemming from some biblical principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I look at this, I'm like, there's no excuses anymore. In my book, there is no excuses. You can say, and I'll tell anybody this, it's easier to fix your marriage than to go to a divorce.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You guys got all this, going through it for yourselves now, and now you're basically doing the relationship coaching and things of that nature now. So for someone that's maybe thinking about divorce, or maybe in the same situation, they might be divorced now and maybe already getting a little bit of counseling. What are some of the steps that you tell these couples, beginning with, step 1 to step 10 or something like that? And what's the main things they should look out for when trying to reconcile?
Okay, so here's the first thing that, at least, is the very first thing we do with the couples. It's helping them to hear each other.
Mm-hmm.
See, we all have 3 needs: the need to be heard, understood, and valued. And if you look
Every
at
single human,
every single one of us,
you're male, female, that's a need. It's not a want, it's a need. If you don't feel heard, understood, or valued, you're starving. You're not flourishing. everyone from the person on the corner to the people in the White House, the people, that's why we having wars right now, because people aren't feeling valued. They're not feeling understood. They're not feeling heard. And so they're acting out of this hurt. Well, I'm gonna make you hear me. You know, so that's the basic thing.
And
we start with that.
So one of the first things we try to do is to get the couples to hear each other.
Mhm.
Because, we have this off switch.
Mm.
And after a while of going back and forth, you don't hear, he's like, want. He's like, you did not hear what she said, or she did not hear what you said. But one of the first things we start is helping them to hear each other.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when they start hearing each other, they start to understand that their spouse is not their enemy, which they're not.
Right.
That's what the devil wants you to think. You
Right.
know, you don't get up every day, I'm gonna mess her day up. I'm gonna make sure she's pissed off at me. We don't get up with that
Nobody
like
wants
that.
that.
No, right. But that's the way you start thinking and feeling after a while.
Yes, you start telling yourself that.
So it's okay, it's exposing the things. So here's the thing. Okay. Everybody thinks that people come, they sit down in front of us and it's always this. Okay.
If you fix,
You gotta fix her and the relationship with,
if he would just, or she would just,
yeah.
then we'd be all right.
Everybody's thinking that, and everybody sits down and that's what they're telling you. And the reality is it's partially true, but that's not the real problem. Because see, you can't fix the other person.
Right.
So what are you gonna do? I mean, so if the solution is to fix the other person, then you're beholden to them. You're their slave.
You have no power.
You have no power. But what's powerful is this statement. I don't know how to speak to get my wife to listen to me. See the power?
She doesn't listen to me.
Yeah.
See, the power changes because it says, I don't know. If I don't know what it means, then it's what? I can learn.
And I can do something different. And that's one of the second steps. You know, it's kind of hard to answer your question because each couple is different and we meet them right where they are. But for this is kind of basically, we got to hear where they're coming from, help them hear each other, help them speak in a way that the other one can hear. That takes skill. Because we're used to doing things and strategizing in the way that we have learned, right? So, for some, for me, gosh, I grew up smallest in my household, with uncles and aunts that were bigger than me. And so for me to get hurt, I had to yell a lot of times. And so when I'm frustrated, I yell.
Guess what triggers me?
Guess what triggers him? Because in his childhood, his dad would yell and it would just cause this fright within him. And so I had to learn how to articulate my feelings and my needs without doing things that would trigger him.
See, and these are the dynamics you learn. So let me go back a little bit and I'll come back to this in a second, because there's a lot of dynamics within the relationship that you need to learn to understand each other.
Right. It's a lot of uncovering what's going on within the individuals.
But up front, when you're starting to listen to each other, basically we say the first thing is to stop the bleeding. Because
that's our goal.
Yeah. You come in.
First thing first. Yeah. We stop the hurting.
Yeah. You stop hurting each other.
Yeah.
Because if you keep hurting each other, you aren't going to build a bond. So we have to help them to see, your spouse is not the problem. You aren't the problem. The problem is out here. It's not you. The problem's out here. So we work on it together. So, I mean, the whole thing about marriage is teaching them to work as a team. And see, all of life, we're struggling to work as a team, and we don't know how. And we go to work and we do it at work, but for some reason, we don't take the concepts home. It's kind of like It works out there, but it doesn't work at home.
Yeah, be polite to your coworkers, but at home, you know,
Say whatever you want to your wife.
yeah,
or
or
your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny. We have, like I was saying, we have all the answers. We just not seen it.
Yeah.
God says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
Mm-hmm.
We simply don't know. You know, he says, and then he says, here's the thing. He said, ask, and he'll give it to us. But here's the other part of it. He says, don't ask for the wrong reason, because he said in James, we ask with wrong motives. We ask for our own lust. We're not asking because we genuinely want to know. Okay. If you genuinely want to get an answer, God will give you an answer. I remember this a long time ago. I was talking to our pastor, and we were in counseling. And at the time, I was leading a young, it was a young marriage couples group. Um, and there was a problem in the group, and I didn't know what it was. And so he asked me, "So what's the problem?" I said, "I don't really know." And he said to me, "You don't want to know." Thinking, what? I don't want to know. Of course I want to know. He says, "No, you don't." I said, "Why you say that?" He says, "Because the Bible says, ask and you shall receive. If you want to know, you simply got to go to God and ask." And that just floored me. I've never forgotten that, because it reminds me, it's like it is that simple. We're Christians. We have the Holy Spirit in us. We have God all around us.
The creator,
Yeah, the creator of the
the
universe.
most powerful entity ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got him at your beck and call, and we'd rather do it our way.
Yeah.
It's and that's, you know, that's a programming thing. We got to learn how to think that way, and I get that. But what I was saying is, we got to stop the bleeding. Okay. Once you stop the bleeding, we're gonna show them how to bond. Because now, when you're not hurting each other, we can talk about how do you bond. Okay. And the thing is teaching each other. We gotta, what we all want is Genesis 2:25. And we want to go back to a place where she's thinking about me and I'm thinking about her.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all want in a relationship. You know, and
Where you're naked and unashamed.
yeah, naked and
You're
unashamed. I'm
vulnerable, you know.
totally open. I can be myself, share my heart,
So, right.
and not feel like I'm going to get plummeted. And that's what we're all striving for. But it's difficult, because we've all had past trainings where when you're vulnerable or you open up, someone slapped you, or they punched you,
Or
or
they tell you, you
you're
know,
stupid, or you're not,
yeah,
whatever it may
be
be.
a wimp,
Mhm.
or all those societal things that have created this culture that we you know, we don't talk about our feelings. We don't even know what we're feeling, right? To even talk about it. To talk about our needs. What are we need to disclose that you need something. Oh, you're just being needy.
And guess what? Every
Well, you
divorce,
needed. You
what do they
needed.
say?
They weren't meeting my needs.
They weren't meeting my needs.
Yeah.
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 It's-
Well,
But
that
the
goes
thing is,
back to your beginning. To your beginning, that the person needs to be heard, need to be
understood.
valued,
Understood and
understood.
valued.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so we have these needs, even these wars that we have today. You know what's not discussed? And you can look at any conflict. Incidentally, we give away a free conflict guide to people.
Yeah, so
That
we'll make
helps.
sure you guys have that to be able to pass on to anyone, the conflict guide.
What we try to help people to see is, what is your need in the conflict?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
he didn't take the trash out again, right? And they're arguing about taking the trash out. Okay. From the guy's perspective, I don't see what the big deal is. Trash outs before the trash man comes, so it's no big deal. For the wife is, okay, it's how I could smell, she smells the aroma. It bothers her. She walks in, the whole room. For the guy, he don't care. He doesn't even care. He does not even smelling it.
Yeah.
So are the needs the same? No. It's not just for the guy's just taking out the trash. For the wife, the need is a nice kitchen, a nice small kitchen. But
Mhm.
what conversation do you hear? When are you ever going to take out the trash?
You never take out the trash. You're lazy.
So now you have this big fight about the trash, but the need is never discussed. And
Yeah.
that's classic in most conflict. The needs to share the need means you have to be vulnerable. You know,
Mhm.
to come in and say, honey, it really bothers me when I walk in, I can smell it, and it would really help me if, you know, if I didn't have to do that, if I didn't have to smell it, it makes me feel really bad or whatever.
Yeah.
But being
Mhm.
able to talk about what it does to the person, we're afraid to expose ourselves.
And that does take some self-reflection because, when you think about it, um, when you feel like there's a conflict going on, if there's something that doesn't feel um at ease to you, stop and think, why is that bothering me? Why is it bothering me?
Mhm.
And then you are able to self-reflect on, well, it's because such and such a need isn't being met and I'm
Right.
feeling such and such a way. And then that allows you to articulate that in a manner to your spouse that they can hear it. And at the end of the day, we remind our couples, you love your spouse. That's why you got married.
Right.
Mhm.
That's the person you want to shine for, to make feel like they're loved, not just love them,
Right.
but do you want them to feel their love? And the answer most of the time is yes. It should be yes. That's why you made this covenant with
Mhm.
this person in front of people, and most of all in front of God.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, taking the time to learn what you need to do. We got this from a conference, Family Life Conference. One of the first things that they tell us at the beginning of the conference is draw an imaginary circle around yourself. And throughout this conference, everything you hear, make sure that you're thinking about every person within that circle and applying it to everyone that's in that circle. Everyone is that's in the circle is me, myself, and I.
Right.
Right. And so that's where a lot of the work starts. And it starts with um we do, get in the foundation of where's your relationship with the Lord, with the Creator, with our Father, with the Holy Spirit. It's a relationship here first,
Mhm.
and then we can, you know, um,
And you need
it'll
that.
help there. Yes, we need His power.
Yeah, because the reality of it is, in order for me to love my wife, just by the pure definition of love, I can't do it in my strength. We can't. We need the Holy Spirit
Yes,
to
we
do
do.
it.
Yeah.
And people seem to think that they can do it and they try to do it on. That's why the divorce rate is so high.
Yeah.
There people are trying to do it in their own strength. And marriage was created in a perfect environment, and we're not in a perfect environment anymore.
Yeah.
So in order for it to function like God originally created, we need to go back to him. He needs to be catalyst that makes it happen.
Yeah.
And we got to be humble enough to open and admit where we're wrong, to be able to face and to see. He'll teach us what we need to know. But a lot of people, to be honest, they don't want to know. Because to know means you have to be accountable.
Well, and sometimes to know means you have to be humble, because that teaching, comes through people with the knowledge a
Yeah.
lot of times, right? So being willing to be vulnerable to counselors, coaches, we go to, when we have something, a broken leg, right? We're going to go to the hospital. We're going to go where there's professional help. You're not going to go to the car garage, the auto mechanic.
Mhm.
Here, fix my leg.
Right.
No, no, so there is help. There are a lot of coaches, counselors, professional Christian, and even those that are non-Christian can help with relationships. Any help is a lot of times better than no help.
The principles work for everybody.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for humans.
Not a respect of persons.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So that's one of the things we encourage people is to get help. That's why we're still the 1%.
Yeah.
I want to say this for people out there. Name me one professional athlete that doesn't have
Mm,
at least successful athlete. Because
yeah.
they all do. Because they know they need someone outside of them to see their blind spots, to be able to tell them, you need to do this, you need to adjust
Yeah.
this.
Adjust this.
But yet, when it comes to marriage, we're afraid to get help. Why?
And it's the most important relationship
Yeah.
that society has.
You know, we're afraid to go study. We will study in on out for our careers and all the stuff, and we will not do it for our marriages.
Or we'll say, I don't have time for my marriage, but then we'll go get someone else, a mistress or somebody. Well, no, spend that time with your spouse, learning your spouse. Don't go try to get somebody else.
Right.
You know, because most of the, or divorce them and get someone else. Because guess what? You just bought your baggage with you. You're going to face the same test over and over. We found that.
Let me say this for anyone out there. The things you don't solve in your first marriage, they will show up in the second.
Believe me.
They will look different. But you're not gonna get away. God's teaching you something, showing you something that you need to address in your life. You think, oh, I'll just get rid of him and it'll go away. No, you're with you. You can't run away from you. And we think, oh, I'm just gonna ditch it. No, you're carrying it with you.
Yeah.
You're gonna face it again.
Yeah.
That's why I keep telling you, it's easier to fix it than to try and run from it. Now, I'm going to be honest because this is something that we want to point out. Some relationships are abusive or not right,
Thank you.
and we don't want to condone it. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah. We're not talking
But-
being a punching bag, physical abuse, spiritual abuse, emotional abuse.
Yeah.
Those things sometimes need a separation time while the help is being, sought.
Yes, you do need help.
Help, but no, do not be a punching bag for anyone. God does not condone that. In fact, I feel like that's why God allowed divorce. Because he said he hates divorce. He allows it because of hardness of man's heart. When a man's heart is hard or
Not
a
willing to
woman's
yield.
heart is hard, like I said, hurt people, right? So that person, that abuser is a hurt person that needs help. And that the person that is being abused is a hurt person that needs help as well.
And typically what we do as people, person who's been hurt, we see their pain, but we don't see the pain of the person hurting. There's just
That's doing the hurt.
the person's doing the hurt is just as dysfunctional as the one that's hurting. In God's eyes, do you think he's drawn lines? He loves them both,
Yep.
but they both need help, not just one. The person, I'll say this because there's a lot of people who's got vices, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or what have you. Okay. There's a reason why they're doing it. That's their way of coping. And our culture penalized them. They don't know any other way of coping. But God is the ultimate coper. He is the ultimate solution. And until they sanction him as God in their life in that era, that probably won't change. But I want to say this. Those who are struggling with those things, they still need help.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as Christians, we penalize them, not realizing that that's their way of self-medicating. And someone needs to step alongside and help them say, this is how, there's a better way. This is how you get out of this crap. rather than let them feel like I'm hopeless. How could you have God and be hopeless?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these things that we have in the church. And I'm like, we got the creator. Why are we feeling the way we do?
Well, we
He's
don't
got
take
all the answers.
Yeah, we
Huh?
don't take time to get to know them, or like you said, people don't
Yeah.
study their word, or you spend all this other time studying everything except
Thing.
studying what you're supposed to
Right.
do in the marriage, and
Exactly.
taking the time out to learn your spouse. One of the
Yeah.
things that our pastor, we took premarital counseling after we was already married.
That's
Mhm.
good.
Our pastor would say, you know, time is your ally in all aspects of everything, especially with
Yes.
the marriage. So you get to know the person, get to
Yes.
know what their needs are. And again, it's a
Yes.
ever, you know, forever going lesson. You know,
Right.
I've said
Right.
this example before on a podcast a couple shows back. It was probably what, 2, 3 years ago around Christmas. My wife and I, we've been married this year will make 13, will be 13 years.
Wow.
And
Nice.
thank you. And I think we was at year 10 or going to year 11.
Uh-huh.
Something I never knew. Our families was here and they was going to the store real quick, and she said, "Hey, bring back some peanut brittle." I said, "Peanut brittle?" I said, "When'd you start eating it?" So I've always loved peanut brittle. What? This is the first time I've heard you even utter the word peanut brittle together. And you want peanut brittle? She's like, "Yeah, I eat it at work." I said, "We never had it in this house." And we're talking
This is
years
10
in.
years in, right?
Yeah, years in. I was like, I've never seen you eat one little crumb of peanut brittle. And all of a sudden you like peanut brittle. What's
It's like,
happening
who are you?
here?
How dare you? I think you got, I mean, you gave so many good nuggets. But one of the things that you said in the very, very beginning, you know, when you were talking about Christian Mingle, and the questions that you know, they ask you, and you know, it prompts you to start thinking about yourself. And so, you know, one of the most important things is like knowing who you are, right? In order for you to even be vulnerable enough to share that with another person.
Yes.
And if there is hurt or there is pain and you have not healed from that, and you don't, you know, and sometimes people don't really know what's causing that.
Right.
So if you're
Mhm.
not digging deep within yourself,
Right.
to figure those things out, like jumping in the marriage, like you said, it's just going to highlight
Yeah.
all of those hurt and pain.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
And
I
so,
mean, that's the thing about marriage, because all the baggages and everything comes out. You gotta unpack sooner or later. And there's a phrase, God uses your spouse to help you heal the wounded areas of your life. Think about it. Who else is going to know you
Yes.
as good as your spouse?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yes. God uses
No.
yourself to heal the wounds of your past.
Right.
You know, a lot of people have had things in their childhood that sometimes they don't even disclose to anyone but their spouse.
Yeah.
And so because they feel comfortable, because they trust that person, right? And so that positions your spouse to be an ally with God to help heal those wounds. So everything is not going to be healed before you come together. God uses, but it does help to, start learning yourself. But God uses your spouse to heal those wounds.
And you'll know when he triggers you.
Absolutely.
And and we talk a lot about conflict.
Conflict is like our
Big talk.
we love talk conflict.
I
Because
like what y'all
all
said about it though.
huh?
About, with conflict, there's a need inside of that.
Yes, there's a need inside there. And the thing is, but conflicts are designed not to tear you apart.
Right.
'Cause that's what most people think.
Right.
It's designed to reveal where you're out of alignment in your marriage.
Right. James One
versus 2 to 4.
one, yeah, chapter 1, 2 to 4 talks about conflict. He tells us, rejoice when you enter into conflict, because if you let that conflict have its perfect work, and I think it says, another translation says, conflict have its patience, it'll reveal things, and I'm paraphrasing, but it'll it'll show you the areas that there is a need, right? And in the end, what James says is that you'll be mature, you'll be perfect, you will lacking nothing. So there is a process in that conflict. So embracing the conflict, and learning how to handle the conflict is going to be essential when they come up. And they will come up, not if. It's when. And handling even the small conflicts, because you can't just brush the small ones under the rug, but because they're gonna resurface at some point.
What would you say, to the dating couple that's thinking about marriage? How can they help prepare themselves to get in this thing and not get to the point, where they're ready to separate while they're in their marriage? What are some tools that they can do to prepare for marriage?
You start with dating. Someone say something about dating. Okay. If you're not ready to get married, don't go start dating.
Have friends.
Have friends.
Just keep it on a friendship level.
Because you don't believe how many guys I know who are in relationship with girls. And I say, so that's the right one. And they know. They know they're not going to marry her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of can attest to that, but that's that's neither here nor there. Man, all right, yeah, you know what you're talking about.
Women they're not getting that. It's like the man knows whether he wants to spend the rest of his life with you. And the thing is, if you see someone, and obviously if you build friendships, and incidentally, friendship is one of the biggest thing in your marriage.
Yes.
People don't get that because
Best friends.
okay, that's my best friend. And I've had people tell me they don't want to spend time with their spouse. I'm like, why do you marry her?
Yeah.
Okay. And see, build friendship, because that friendship will take you a long way, especially when you're pissed off at each other. Okay. That's where the friendship comes in. It's like, oh, I miss my friend. I like talking to her. Okay, okay. You forgive your friend. You look beyond the faults. But what I was going to say is, for a lot of single couples, okay, and I hadn't thought about this earlier, but if you are seeing someone, where is it going? This only goes one place. So if it's not where you want to go, why are you on the train?
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship and this man is not going to marry you, or this woman is not going to marry you, why are you in it?
Yeah.
And the longer you stay in it, the harder it is to get out.
You get attached and bonded, even if it's not the right person. What I would add to that is, for the ladies, the Bible tells us to guard our hearts, right? So there is a certain amount of vulnerability that you have with each other when you're dating. You don't show everything. You're not vulnerable 100%, because that's not your husband. That's not your wife. So what we're talking about, being vulnerable, that's not for the dating couple. There's a limit on that. And I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking about emotionally as well, right? And ladies, if you're dating a guy and he says he's not ready to get married, or he just wants to be your friend, believe him,
Mhm.
and keep it as the friend.
Yeah.
Don't let your friend monopolize all your time like he's your boyfriend, because you're allowing him to. You get what I'm saying? You know, it's like, okay, well, if you're my friend, you know,
And
like
stop
God, I'll talk
believing
to
that you're gonna change his mind.
Yeah.
Yes,
Believe.
yes, yes.
Let
And
it go.
you know, it may change his mind. He might realize, oh, well, that is a good thing, you know. But if you just cast your good thing on someone that's not willing to do what it takes to earn it, you've, you know, you've just, you know, this, I don't know how to say it, but just, 'cause we don't, that's why we don't do
We don't do
dating.
we
Yeah.
don't do pre-marriage.
We're like, you know,
There's enough problems on the other side.
there's enough problems with on the other side of it. But the other thing that we recommend highly is premarital counseling.
Yes.
For sure. For sure, for sure, for sure. In our church, we are so proud of a young married couple that has just started a small group for dating people, for couples that are dating and for couples that are engaged, because there's this gap. You've got the single group, you got the married group. But what about this dating group here? Who are they gleaning from? Who are they learning about? They're trying to do it on their own, you know. So, you know, how do you date? How do you go on dates and still keep it pure? How do you spend time together? So these practical things, this young couple in our ministry has listened to the Lord to open up their heart to help these couples. And you know, it was funny. They said one of the couples in their group said that they noticed the group ends in December or something like that. And the leader said, well, you know, you're not going to be in this group pretty long. You shouldn't be in this group pretty long. So, I mean, it's a transition period, right? It's like so that's another thing. People, you know, we're dating, we're engaged, and you've been dating and engaged for 5 years.
Yeah. Which brings up the other group, which
So many
No.
people like that.
No.
Not
here's
ready.
here's a group, and this is for the young. Okay.
So as you got to come to excuse me, let me feel like that. You got to come to realization that's probably not the right person for you. If you're not willing to marry them,
Yeah.
are they willing to marry you? That may not be the right person. So stop wasting your time. And I'm preaching to the choir because, like I said, I lived with my first spouse for a while. And it got to a point where I'm like, and I was a Christian young woman, but just not in community enough for whatever reason, still went wayward. But it had gotten to the point where I'm like, dude, you know, if we're not gonna get married, it's time to bounce.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is not gonna continue on. You know, I'm not gonna be the one, you know, 10, 20 years just living with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say something to that group. Okay. Your opportunity for divorce goes up 30-something% if you live with your spouse before you're married.
It does.
Those are numbers.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear. They want to, oh, I know the younger people, I get it. You haven't seen good marriage examples. You know, there's a lot of reasons for you not to trust it. This idea I'm going to test, that doesn't work. This test crap, it doesn't work. God did not design it to work as a test. You either make a commitment. It doesn't work without a commitment. And living together is not a commitment. And here's the thing, ladies, it's worse for you because you get an emotional bond that the guy doesn't necessarily carry. If he hasn't committed to you, you have no emotional security. And a lot of women don't know this. They may not admit it, but deep down inside, they're very insecure because they know you can pack up and leave anytime. And then we may not talk about it, That's the realities.
Yeah, it doesn't bring security.
It does not bring security. That's
Beautiful.
yeah.
Right?
So and then so this makes it even worse because now you are in a relationship where you're not secure and you're supposed to be, you're trying to be bonded, but you're not bonded. So the level of vulnerability is buried, but it's supposed to be
It
open,
comes to a cap.
right? So you can't build the emotional bond that you need to. You're doing it physically, but you're not doing it emotionally. So then you're not really one. You have this, I don't know what you call it, but
Ain't right.
yeah, but there's yeah, problem. But see, here's the thing is, we all make these mistakes and because of what we see our culture doing, what we see what people doing, we haven't learned. And God says there's a reason, it's funny. There's a reason why God set rules up for us. And I was I'm reading the Old Testament when I do it every year. I go through the Bible in a year. And I'm listening, he's giving me all these laws and these guidelines out of heat, what things to do, I mean, how to treat people when they're sick and just all these guidelines. And, we think, oh man, all the rules and stuff. And the thought came to me and realized they didn't have the level of hygiene that we have today. We progressed a lot in certain areas. We've learned and understand certain things. But if you think way back then, God set up a lot of laws. It really was to protect his people. It
Yep.
wasn't, and people look at the laws and think, oh,
I can't do
I
nothing.
can't do that. I can't do anything. And it's like, I was talking to someone and said, God says he hates divorce. You know why he hates it? It's not for him. It's not to change his world. It's gonna mess our world up.
Yeah.
It's no one leaves a divorce unscarred. No one.
Right.
And there's scars there that they don't tell you about. Then everybody's telling, oh, you can dump them or dump her. Get someone else who's gonna care for you or whatever. Yeah, that sounds great for you because you don't have to live my life. But I'm telling you, if you're married and you have children, you don't get rid of that person.
Yeah.
They're in your life until that child grows up.
And
Catch
then
it,
some.
and then some
And
catch it.
then
Yeah, you don't get rid of them.
Right.
You think you're getting rid of them. At least that's what you're telling. That's the lies being playing you. You don't get rid of them. And not only that, they'll leave, and you have this dysfunctional connection where you never really cleared the air. So every time you see each other, there's this tension between you. It's messy
Yeah.
and it's painful.
God hates it.
We think God's telling us because he doesn't. He's telling us because he understands the pain that it causes us as his children. He knows the pain. And people they're not hearing that. We're hearing a lot of, hey, if you don't like it, just bail. And there's a cost. There's a cost. And most people are afraid we will do anything for our cars or home, whatever, but we won't do the things we need to nourish or spend even a dime. We'll make sure that our relationship is flourishing.
Yeah.
Man,
And
that's said a mouthful and all of that, man.
yeah. So
Especially when you said,
got carried away.
for the men out there, we do know that when the woman is the one, we also for sure it might even take us a little while to figure out she the one per se. You definitely know this ain't it, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick beside her for a little while anyway. So any I guess final advice that you would give to that married couple that's thinking about you know what, this ain't working no more.
I tried.
I
but I just
tried.
can't do it.
Well, it's just you hurt my head every time I see you. Whatever it is. What would be that final advice for them?
You want to go or you want me to go?
I think for sure Pray, seek the Lord, and listen, not just talk to him, not just talk to him. Talk to him, yes, but listen. When you pour out your heart to the Lord, he knows how you feel. He knows what you're going through. Definitely seek help. Even if one spouse, if the other one might not be ready to get coaching or get counseling, but in a dance couple, if one of the dancers makes a different step or changes the move, excuse me, the dance is changed.
Yes.
So even one spouse, we've got a couple of people that we coach, and it's just one of the spouses. And we help them work on them and their part, and let God work on the other spouse. Let God and seek his face, seek what he wants. What is his role? What is his desire in your marriage? Put yourself out of it and ask him, I'm presuming you're a Christian, you have a relationship with the Father. Talk to him like, he is your Father. And because he wants the best for you as well. And like I said, there are times when you have to leave. If you're abused, your kids are being abused and emotional spirit. Yeah, then that's ask the Lord to help you with that escape, right? And to be safe. So that's my first thing is pray and then seek help.
I'll add to that. I'm gonna go practical. Every divorce happens when you reach a problem that you both can't solve. And
well, you feel like you can't.
You feel it, just like you said. It's like I've done everything.
Right.
I tried this, and
you hit this roadblock.
You hit this roadblock. Okay, and here's the thing. It's solvable. Here's the truth. You don't know how to solve it. You and your spouse don't know how to solve it. That's the truth. It's not that it can't be solved. The truth is you don't know how to solve it. And rather than, if you're willing to accept that you don't know how to solve it, guess who does know? God does. Go to him and ask him, Lord, how do I fix this? What do I need to do? See, we're not going to God. We're going to what people tell us. And that's why we have the divorces in the Christian community we have. Because why would God create something that's good and best for you, but it doesn't work? Marriage works.
Yes, it
Marriage
does.
is not the problem. We're the problem.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It was
So go to
good.
God.
The
Go
dance.
ahead.
The dance. I have seen it happen where one spouse goes and says, I'm going to take the necessary steps.
Yes.
And I've witnessed it in live time, and it's so amazing. So amazing how he works on you. He changes you. And then the other person sees that and they're like,
something's different.
Yeah, what's happening over here? Right? And they're intrigued and they want to know more. And then eventually they're willing to join in because they see the change in you. That is
Yes.
I think the common thing too throughout this whole show has been the number one.
Yes.
If you think about it, it took the one for you guys to join. When you get married, the two shall become one. Y'all got divorced. The therapist or whatever said, well, people in your situation, there's only a 1% chance. Y'all like, well, we beat that. and then to go settle this conflict, even if you can't get to at least one, goes and do it,
Mhm.
and you see the positive results from that.
Yes.
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 And then
It is.
to wrap that all up real quick with the far as the summary of the one, you go to the one that has it all. So
That is it. That is it. And you know, it is so rewarding, so amazing. Tia, when we see couples come in and they're like this, can't stand it. Oh, and just, and then maybe by, I don't even know how many sessions, and maybe not
One session.
after the first session, they're kind of like this. But then to see after a couple of sessions and they're like,
Yeah.
I get emotional when I see that because I remember the way they came in.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that they came to see us. It's that they said yes to what we're saying.
Yeah.
And they're saying yes to what the Lord.
Yes to the Lord.
They're saying yes to the Lord because, like we tell them, we're with you 24/7.
We're the coaches.
We're
We give you, you got to do the reps.
You gotta do the reps.
We tell you what you need to do.
Yeah, we tell you what you don't want to hear. And so you can have the results that you want, but the Holy Spirit is the counselor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We partner with him and we have seen amazing things that just like are mind blowing that, something we said and the next day somebody else is telling the same thing, or they see it, or they read it. And then vice versa, they're coming to us and the lesson that we prepared for them, we're asking, praying about it and then prepare a lesson, and they come in with that very question.
Look at
And
the
we're
Holy
like,
Spirit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, God is so amazing.
One.
That's it.
Go on.
Now, where can people find you for this?
Okay, so we have a website, restoredmarriages.com. You can reach on there. You can book a call. We give a free consultation call, introductory. And we have a Facebook group that is really good. It's called facebook.com/redeem your marriage. So you can connect with us there too.
And the website?
At restoredmarriages.com. There's also, we have a giveaway on, it's a little PDF on conflicts. Okay, and
it kind of maps out or outlines what we've been kind of talking about, identifying the need, identifying the feeling, to get to how do you articulate this request to your spouse.
And that's at restoredmarriages.com/conflicts. So,
wow.
yeah.
So we want to thank you guys for joining. Man,
thank you for inviting us.
True pleasure. I feel like there's going to be so many people that's going to be blessed by this.
Yeah.
They truly take the time to listen what's being stated, because it provides an opportunity to get it right. And most importantly is getting it right with the Lord, following what he's wanted, his desires for our lives. So to see that and see the testimony that you guys have, y'all went through it. Muck in the mire, as they say, that y'all made it through. So again,
got the scars to prove it.
Oh yeah. Healed in Jesus' name, that y'all are.
Healed in Jesus' name and come out not even smelling like smoke.
Absolutely. Right. So again, thank you for joining us, and for everyone else, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
What's up, podcast family? We just want to say thank you for tuning in, watching our episodes. we pray that what we are saying is a blessing to you. God placed it on our hearts to share with other married folks and soon to be married folks. So again, we just pray that it's blessing you.
And stay tuned for the next video. Again, we want to thank you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for supporting This Works For Us podcast.